I'm gonna do that. So what are we at? 302. So Zenna is coming on. Is it Zenna? Zena?
Zena.
Zena. Hi, Zena. I see you on Facebook a lot and Instagram. And so it's good to see you personally now. I'm waiting for a few more people to jump on if anyone else is going to join us. This is exciting that a lot of people were jumping on interested. Patrick, we met in one of the talks with Travis, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to find my notes, but my
Oh, that's right.
organization skills are yeah,
And
poor.
then Mark, have I met you? Lisa, I just talked to Lisa. Natalie, have we talked or met? You're on mute.
Okay. I think I am muted. I am muted, right? Yes.
Not now. You're unmuted now. We can hear you.
No, we have not met. I'm
Okay. All right,
just
good.
a very quiet member of this group.
Um, oh, 9 p.m. Thanks, Patrick, for jumping on then. All right, well, listen, it's 3:03. I'm a very prompt person, so oh, Marina's coming on. Hold that thought. It is Lions Day here in Detroit. The Detroit Lions have set franchise records in making it to the second round of playoffs, first in the division. So we're excited here. That's just my little soapbox speech if anyone's a football fan. Hey, Renee. You're on
Hi.
mute.
For the Rams tomorrow.
Oh, you're a Rams person?
Well, I am in from Southern California, so yes.
I was in Southern California, but I never had, I'll just share this quick. I never had a favorite team really anywhere, but coming here, the Detroit Lions were the worst football team in the franchise in NFL history. They have the worst record. This was the first year. Last year I think 2 years ago was the first year they had a winning season, and yet they are the highest grossing revenue NFL team in the league, and it just shows like that fan loyalty and the grit that the Detroit fans have. They'll suffer through everything, and I said, man, that is like true loyalty, and it's just you get that out here, and I just love it. I'm excited, not for me. I just excited to support the city. I think it's such a cool thing. So anyway, um, well, listen, thank you guys for coming on. Those that jumped on late, I am recording this because a few people asked for us to play it on on the Google group, and maybe I'll throw it up on Slacks too, might as well. But I know that over the years, Travis, you guys all got probably pretty familiar with Travis, and my name probably came up a little bit here and there. David Smith and I worked together at Agoscu. I'll share this story, but Travis and I worked together at Agoscu. So some of you that have heard this, Lisa was asking more specifically about where I came from and who I am. So that was really what I wanted this call to be, because you have heard my name and I have thrown in some comments when I have a chance to on the groups. But I am a licensed athletic trainer, so I'm the one that runs out in the field and picks up the athletes when they get injured. That's really what my primary training was around. It was the prevention, recognition, and recovery of injuries. So we had to do triage, assess injuries. This past year, I had over 15 concussions, a dislocated knee, dislocated shoulder, dislocated finger. I've had broken wrists, broken hands, many sprained ankles, and those are the things we triage. And then I have the responsibility, if I have the opportunity, to help them rehab back. One of my primary focuses is on prevention, and so that was what I was trained in. When I went through college, got to working in physical therapy, I really enjoyed physical therapy and working one-on-one with clients. But I found a lot of pitfalls in physical therapy, and gaps I just really wasn't understanding the process. So I went on to graduate school and quickly learned that I was seeing things different than all my cohort was. The peers that I was athletic trainers with, they were still on the triage part, really understanding injury mechanisms and helping recovery type stuff through modalities, ice, heat, stim, ultrasound, all that stuff. And I was the only one that was looking at things. At the time, I didn't really know what I was looking at, but I was seeing things that the head trainer mentioned to me, that you see things differently than we do. You're doing things a little differently. I was the only one that had rehab experience. So they kind of pointed me toward, all the athletes started coming to me for back pain and problems. And these were Division I college athletes. And I was thinking, oh, these kids have back pain. Like we were led to believe that that's like an old person's problem. Anyway, I left grad school, and I, roundabout way, found and heard about Pete Agoscu through, I think, an ad in a newspaper he was hiring. And so I said, well, let me check it out. And I thought he was just a personal training gym, and I wasn't going to do it. And then I think he told me, or Casey Lyons told me, just go get the book and read it and see what you think. And it was his first book. After I read his first book, I said, this is where I need to be, because it was looking at body mechanics. He was looking more at this kinetic chain thing that I didn't understand the words to yet. I just knew I was looking at the body similar to how he was explaining in his first book. And so I dove in. I worked with Pete from 97 through 2003 for 6 years. That was when Travis started. Travis is no longer working in this industry. He kind of went on a different path. So that's why I wanted to get more involved with everybody and kind of learn what you guys are doing and learn more about this group, because I think it's pretty valuable, especially the passion I heard about from what Travis explained to me. David Smith and I worked together. I think David started there a year or two after I was there. But there was a small group of us that really took the teachings of Pete to heart and really wanted to understand it and learn it. I left right when they started the training, the university stuff. I went on my own, and I started working with corporations on injury prevention. And the interesting part was, I was by myself now. I really had nobody to communicate with, or to discuss things or collaborate with or figure things out. And so what that did for me in a good way was that it forced me to kind of look down a lot of different paths and different rabbit holes, I call them. And that's what really led me to discovering some of the stuff that I have talked about with Travis. I think some of you have got on calls with us, and we've discussed kind of some of these movement patterns. And I've gone down that rabbit hole completely now. I'm actually working with a group out here, a sports medicine group, and with some high schools. We work with sports performance teams, and I'm privileged to work with some very smart people in strength and conditioning, athletic trainers, physical therapists, that all share the same kind of focus on understanding kinetic chain and looking at movement patterns and things like that. And so it's been really eye-opening to me to understand that there is this other unit out there outside of the traditional physical therapy. So in developing this program I did, I had to work with a lot of people that they were not bought in financially. They were, the company paid me, and I just worked with individuals. So I went out and sought out people to work with at the companies. I'd look at people that were sitting at their chairs wrong, and I would do some adjustments and things I started learning about ergonomics, and I would introduce some exercise programs to them. And then it just grew from there. Some people started hearing about me. I was doing speaking engagements with some different organizations to kind of get the word out. And I used ergonomics as a Trojan horse, a way to get in the company, because everyone knew what ergonomics was. At least they thought they knew what ergonomics was. And I would come in and explain to them about ergonomics, saying, okay, yeah, we've heard this before. And then I would throw that other bit in about movement patterns, or at least exercise. You've got to perform healthy movement at your desk. And I started doing a lot of talks on sitting postures and all this stuff. And it just led to really some breakthroughs I had with watching people work, understanding kind of what the mainstream of people do. I mean, we're talking about a company that had over 2,000 employees. So that's a pretty strong snapshot. And this was in Orange County, a pretty strong snapshot of our population. And it led me to draw some similarities to what I started noticing. And like I said, I went down this rabbit hole on movement. I just was stuck with posture. I did not understand it. I didn't understand what Pete saw and why he was giving me exercises that we both saw the same things in posture, but I didn't know what he was looking at. He wouldn't explain it to us. He never would explain it. We'd ask him. We'd try to sit down with him. He never would explain it. We had to figure it out to an extent, and that's what led me to learning about movement patterns, because I started doing some different assessments with my clients when I was at Egoscue, because I couldn't see enough. The gait analysis wasn't enough for me. Static posture wasn't enough. I just wasn't understanding it, and I was trying to piece these things together, and there was no systematic way. And so I'll just share a funny thing is Pete wasn't going to hire me. When he found out that I was an athletic trainer, I was the only one at the company that had any medical background, that I actually studied anatomy. And I thought that was a value, and he didn't like it. He didn't want someone that was medically trained, because it didn't blend with his teaching of his way, right? And so I had to rely on my training and education to start thinking about the body. Some of the great stuff that Pete introduced to me started helping me see outside the box, which was a great thing. And I just went outside that box and found holes that you wouldn't believe. And I had to start putting it together. This whole ACM system that some of you guys are familiar with, some of you, I think, Grace, you started the course with me. A lot of this course was my just wanting a deeper understanding of how I can help my clients, and it started building into a program that was consistent. I started seeing the same things after same thing after same thing. I would assess, I would test my theories, and it was coming across the board as they were all. I was seeing all the same things from each person, regardless who they were, what job they had. Again, the human body is the constant here. So I built it into more of a systematic approach that I could use for my clients, because I was tasked with, Mike, we love what you do, but we only have 5 minutes to do a warm up for our guys to send them out into the field. And I said, 5 minutes? What can I do in 5 minutes? Well, if we're gonna fix everybody, and I wasn't working individually, I was working with groups of 10, groups of 20, 20 people. How do you hit everything? We would see 20 different postures, right? But I knew that from these movement patterns, these foundational movement patterns, that those have to be in place. So I can put together a 3 exercise or 5 exercise sequence that could be done in 5 minutes that would focus on improving those movement patterns, which ultimately I started to understand, like static posture was just an end result of something. And when I went down these rabbit holes and did a lot of research and studying, reading about posture, reading textbooks about posture, and it wasn't just static posture, it was dynamic posture. Posture was just a strategy to do something, and that was to remain upright, balanced through the y-axis, and that's all it is. And so in order for me to understand postural deviation from static, I had to start understanding what people did and didn't do through movement, and that's where a lot of this stuff came from. It started to become so much more clear to me and easier to see where the problems were from just going through a 3-minute assessment, and it opened the door to understanding a person's dynamics a lot more, and it helped me really understand how I could start fixing these, plus how I could scale this to, now I'm working with Herbalife, which is, we're launching internationally this year. I'm heading to China in a couple of months, and the Netherlands, to introduce the programs to their companies, their distribution centers there. And so I was thinking, how am I going to be able to scale something like this to a 20,000 employee company? And it was through understanding that human movement is finite in a way. We have specific joint ranges of motion. If we can assume that most people have restrictions in these movement patterns, we can improve them through these movement things. And then it becomes individualized, right? Each person's going to have an individual focus. But so that's really where I came from. That's how I got involved in this group. Travis mentioned I didn't know anything about this Egoscue group. I didn't know that he had all these alliances, this other group of people out there. And from my understanding, it became a group because there was frustration in the group or amongst you guys as to the education level with Egoscue and that missing part of the systematic approach. How do you know? What are you seeing? And in asking Travis before I introduced the ACM to him, I asked him, I said, how are you writing menus? What are you using? What is your basis? What is your, and he's like, well, you know, Mike, it's just kind of intuitive. And I said, but that's not really what we do. And it shouldn't be intuitive because now you're just guessing. And so I introduced ACM to him. He's like, this is incredible. And you guys know Travis. He's great at sales. He's great at just how making people feel really good and comfortable. But he never really got involved in wanting to dive into the research with me and develop this. He just kind of trusted that I'm that kind of person, and I really uncovered a lot of stuff. So that's who I am. That's what I want to be able to do. You'll notice in some of my responses, I look at things a little differently. I have a hard time just looking at static postures and deciphering anything, even to the extent of work that I did with Pete personally, with Brian, with Casey, with some great therapists that we worked with in the beginning. I still never really quite understood the posture part. I get it, but we're guessing if we don't look at things. And that's why I wanted to have a more congruent way to assess everybody so that I wasn't missing something along the equation. Working with this new sports medicine team of therapists and trainers, I've learned a couple other aspects of human movement. These guys blow my mind. I think there's some, I'm still trying to understand their system, because I think we can still go to a systematic approach for every single person. But we work with young kids and older adults, and most of these young kids. I mentioned this in the Slacks team. I think I was introduced. I was answering a question. You can look this up, but it's called the long-term athletic development model, and it's through a Canadian study, and it's been pretty widely accepted now. It started in 2004, and there's a lot of gaps in the assessment, but what it did was it looked at the stages of development for youth athletes or youth, and what was most critical at a certain time in their life. And it had to do with puberty and growth plates and hormone releases. And so young kids. I had a kid today that was 11 years old, and he's running. He plays all sports, but he started doing cross country. Cross country being an endurance sport, he's not in the age bracket right now where this model fits in. Young kids between 8 and 11, I think it is, should be focusing on speed, agility, and coordination, not endurance. Endurance shouldn't come into almost the later phases of their life, 16, 17 years old. And that has to do with growth plate formation and stuff. So he's moving into a phase where he should be just purely strengthening. It's really incredible stuff. So like I said, I go down rabbit holes because there's a lot of great stuff out there that is being more and more researched. Oh, Carol just joined us. Hi, Carol. That's kind of who I am. I've really done deep dives into this stuff, and I'll continue to do that. So with my program, my focus is to the foundation I've built. I'm very, very confident about this foundation now. 5 years ago when I started this and I had done the research, I built the ACM, the movement pattern assessment. I've done thousands of movement pattern assessments now through this. And it's interesting to be doing this with the physical therapist that I'm working side by side with at the center. I'll take someone through my screening process post physical therapy that have been released, and I'll still find some of these movement dysfunctions that were never really addressed or that they haven't caught up to. And it's interesting because I can get back to working with some of these people that now have gone through the physical therapy, and we're discussing some of the assessments that they use. And interestingly, they use a lot of a good handful of the ACM, not because they knew ACM, but they just know movement is important to differentiate patterns. So anyway, yeah, that's where I come from. My goal with this whole program is to grow it with added content and just keep that going down that rabbit hole, but having a much more systematic approach to doing what you guys do, work with clients. You see it. You guys are phenomenal therapists in identifying these postural dysfunctions and compensations and all the things that we talk about. But I really wanted to have, for me, a systematic way to address that with everybody and make sure I wasn't missing something. But at the same time, it set me up to know what to do with that person from day one and move forward. And that's where kind of the phases of my corrective exercise theories come from. Does that make sense, you guys? That's who I am. Lisa, does that help clear up some answers about who I am and where I came from?
It did, but I do have another question.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned that you don't get how do you analyze a person static. So how
No,
do
I
you,
get it. It just doesn't tell me enough.
okay,
I
so how do you analyze someone if you don't see them standing front, back, side, or walking,
I
or doing
analyze
functional
movement.
testing?
Yeah,
Okay,
I analyze their movement. The same
could you
thing, the
explain
same thing,
more?
the same, I'm sorry.
Could you explain a little more about that? I'm
Yeah,
very interested.
so one of the aspects to what we did at Egoscue, or what you guys are doing and what you learned, was look at the static posture, all the views, and it tells us a story, but it didn't complete that story. So one thing that was interesting to me, and this is why I will tell you why I won't do static posture assessments, because I used to do them, and I hundreds of people at this company I worked with before I kind of went down this path. And there's one lady I worked with. She was older. She was a exercise advocate. She worked out all the time. Her knees were so medial. Her feet were so everted, and and I saw it. We all would see it. And I worked on her and worked on her and worked on her. And then when I finally started coming up with my movement approach, I asked her one day to do a quick ankle mobility test for me. She had zero range of motion at her ankle joint. And I'm like, my God, all this stuff that she did. She used to come to my group classes for years, and she'd feel a little bit better and she'd get stronger, but she never really got anywhere. I looked at that and I was like, my gosh, I missed that because I can't see it from a static posture. I need to move. And so gait analysis didn't even tell me that. I didn't know if it was weak or if it was tight. I don't know why she had ankle mobility, but I knew that now I knew that once we started working on ankle mobility with her, everything in her workouts changed. And I feel like I felt so bad that I didn't see it from the beginning, but it also gave me that relevance that I knew that this is much more powerful to see movement than it is static postures. I think static posture gives us a snapshot, but the movement pattern assessments tell us a lot more about how the body's functioning. And again, we look at it as a connection, right? The connection from the ankle to the shoulder to the neck. So with that being said, I can do a 3-minute movement pattern assessment and get a lot more out of it than I can a static posture. I can tell you, looking at movement patterns, I can almost guess what the static posture is going to look like, as opposed to guessing what their movement is going to be based on static posture. Because now I'm getting a more authentic view of how the body functions, which isn't statically, it's dynamically. And dynamic posture is a condition that we have to be addressing, dynamic posture. That's what our body's constantly doing. We're constantly finding strategies to remain vertical through that y-axis. And so that's really the path I went down. And I'll tell you, I'm very confident with this program. I know there's more to it, that we have so much more. And I guarantee every one of us, if we took one part of it, we could do it. And you'll see, Carol and Grace can attest to this. There's this an hour video that I shot that's only about ankle mobility, that's only about toe touching. And each one of those can be broken out into even longer explanations and descriptions. I got into the vestibular system and even the emotional thing. I had a girl yesterday, she's 11 or 12, and she has some ankle pain. And when the therapist had her running, her head was down the whole time, and she would stand and talk to us with her head down. She could lift her head up. She was an athlete, and so it made me realize, like, there's probably even some psychological stuff going on here, and that has to be addressed. And so we take all this into account. It's very multifactorial. And with that being said, that's why I don't just rely on one thing, static posture, to tell me much. And I know that Pete makes it simplified. He makes it sound simplified, but he couldn't even explain it to us. And I think that was a frustrating part. Even the seasoned therapists that were there before I got there couldn't explain it to me. And John Lemmy was one of those guys I worked with. And they would try to break this stuff down and nuance it, but it really came back down to movement, right? We used gait analysis as a test to see if anything was working a lot of times. And then I saw that picture today about someone doing a toe touch pattern, which is a movement pattern, because we have to find those missing pieces that aren't showing up. But there's other aspects to that movement we look at. Yeah. Does that
I have
help,
a question.
Lisa? Who was going to ask? Sorry. Hey, Grace.
Um, we all, most of us, I think, use PTX therapy, and it's got 800 and some odd exercises. And I haven't completed your program. I just haven't had time.
It's all right. It doesn't expire.
When I'm done with your program and I want to assign an exercise, do you have a program like that?
I don't have software is very expensive, so I have the assessment software that I've been offering you guys to just try. All it is it's from the program that you guys are learning. I have all the spreadsheets in there, all the forms to use to do an assessment. I took that, we built it into an assessment software so that you can do the assessments. It's kind of, it looks nice, gives you a visual effect. And then it has an algorithm that determines which one's most important to address first, and then it'll automatically send your client a program, a pre-designed program. There's nothing else. We can do a lot of videos. We can put in a lot of photos. You can add that, but there's nothing else added to it. To do that was going to probably take another year of building a PTX essentially, and I don't want to do that. I think that I actually Marty is one of the other Posture Alliance guys who worked a lot with me last year on this to learn it, and I offered my exercise list to him and showed him how I do programs. I have an Excel spreadsheet, all the exercise pictures I've done over the years. I've done 3 photo shoots that each take about 2 days, and it takes about 2 weeks to edit those photos, put the descriptions in. It's very time exhausting. And so the last time I did it, this is the last time I'm going to do this. But now I've added probably 25, 30 new exercises that I come up with and ideas. And so I have a template that I put everything in. That way I can do it very quickly. Write up a program. I have it all templated out, but it's on an Excel spreadsheet and a folder with pictures. I know which exercise I want. I type it in, I import it, and it's already pre-designed, set up to go into that thing.
So
That's
when
how
you've
I do
done
it.
that, when a person's taking your course and they've gotten certified or whatever, and they do these movement assessments, and it helps, somehow there's help in terms of what you should address, and then you send this client this spreadsheet or some portion of it, and everything's in there for them except a video, but pictures and description about what to do. That's my main concern, is you're working with people and then they go home and they have to have some way of continuing with the exercises you assign them.
Right. You have to have a way to deliver exercises. I'll show you. Let me just, I haven't trying to. Share my screen, and I'll show you how I do this. And so what I did with, oh, here we go. So what I did with, you guys can see my screen, I take it. Yes.
A blank screen.
Yes, now
Okay.
I can.
So in my folder, oh, I have too much stuff here. I have too much stuff. So I have, where's my exercise folder? I'll move these things out of the way.
Up on the right, there's an exercise instruction cert.
Stored exercises. It's right here somewhere. Usually
Corrective exercises, new
usually have it
ACM.
like this,
Oh, you got it.
find it. I can find it faster. So this is my folder of exercises. They're all just PDFs. I've already got the description, picture, and everything in them. And you can see all the different colored ones because I've added so many different ones over the time. So what I do is this. I'll show you really quickly how I do it. And again, this is just how I do things. It's the best version I use, and I haven't found the value for me to put together an entire software system like John Lemmy. The expense of that to have someone program it was a lot of money when I did it initially. So this is like an example of an Excel spreadsheet. This should open somewhere. An Excel spreadsheet that I already have formatted to a certain size. I already have, it's already formatted. I'll go into print mode. So the Excel spreadsheet shows me the grid, and I already have this all formatted. I can just type in anybody's name here. I have all this information I wrote, and then the first set of exercises is just like a program. Write them down, duration, sets, and then each page afterward is where I would insert a photo. I'll just go like this, picture, and over to cell from my device. I'll find that folder. With Zoom running like this, it slows down my computer because of the RAM, but go into restore, where is it? Here we go. Restore, exercises. And whatever photo I want to choose, let's just do air bench. It'll automatically insert it, and it's already formatted to that size page, so I don't have to do anything, and I just move to the next one. At the end, I just save it as a PDF and send it to them. That's how I do it, to avoid having to pay for Agostu or EP, and I have all control of what exercise I want and how I want to describe them. But this takes a long time to take a photo, get them right, and then do all the editing and all that stuff. But one of the things I did with Marty was I gave him access to it on a Google Drive of all the photos and the templates that you can rebrand yourself. But I was willing to do that to get people access to the exercise library for yourself. I'm not trying to take anything away from John Lemmy. I'm not looking to compete with John Lemmy, anything like that. This is how I do it. I make it simple for myself. And with that being said, I've already developed. So this is am I still sharing my screen?
Looks like
Yes.
it.
So this is a program I designed. This is a pain-free program, and I built just for instance, I think the hip's done. Yeah. So this is, oh, that's just a picture. So this is I have some pre-designed programs for pain, a program 1 and a progression to program 2, and I sell these to people. But it's already got videos set up in the program. You just click on the program for the videos. I have it a different format, and so now when I want to recreate something, I just go into this format. I change a few things for the hip, for the knee, for the shoulder. I already have the exercises, and then it's just the pictures I have in here. Catch up. And then each one of them takes them through a video of the exercise too. But again, this stuff, individually, all of this, it would take forever. It's exhausting amount of time. So the work John's done on PTX, I would say, I have never used PTX, but it's pretty impressive just because I know what it takes to build software and the cost that it takes to build software. And to John's point, he spent a lot of money and time and asking him about how many people he's marketing it to. It's only you guys, about 100 people. And so I don't know how he's making revenue. So that's a concern I would have as a customer. Like at some point, he's going to have to start using AI to build programs for people and take your customers away. I think, I don't know. I would, if I would.
Well, PTX already provides AI for people who subscribe that
Yeah.
are not therapists.
Oh, okay, good.
And the therapists have access to the AI program as well to generate routines if they want to use it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. To build all that, it's very expensive. I don't have the ambition to do that.
He had funding from a client who was an NFL player or something, and he funded it.
Again, yeah, there's a lot of money involved, and I don't have the resources for that. And that wasn't where I wanted to put my attention. My attention was on therapy, understanding it, and and like I talked to with these guys at the course I'm in, they anyone that says they know everything about human movement, I run the other way. It's such a deep subject. So I think I've uncovered from my experience and the years I've been doing this on my own, and now collaborating with you guys and collaborating with other people in the sciences, I'm finding that what I put together is very, very valid, and it just because of the research behind it. Yeah, let me stop sharing. Better.
I've
John,
got
I have a question for you. So you've done long time ago Egoscue, and then you created this. Let's say I'm a new therapist, I'm a new person, and I wanna learn about therapy, and I use your program. Um, and I don't want to go through your pictures because I don't want to do
Yeah.
Excel's. It's a lot of work. If I want to learn your system, and I also want to use PTX for the exercises and the pictures that are perfect, will it work?
100%.
Like, can I combine both?
Yeah, all I'm offering you is another way to look at the body. And again, I'm not saying I don't look at posture. I can recognize it across the room like you guys can. But I usually watch them walk. I watch them sit. I watch them bend, and I start noticing things. And this really came from doing a lot of ergonomic assessments because I used to watch people before I got to them. I knew who they were that I had to work with that were calling me for help. But with it doesn't, I do this with a lot with personal trainers. I do this with massage therapists that don't have those platforms that you guys are familiar with, and they come up with their own. I have a massage therapist who doesn't really use exercise as her main modality. She uses fascial massage and fascial releasing and stuff. And I said that's all great as long as you have a way to test it. If you're improving someone's movement through your fascial stretching and all this stuff, then great, you're improving. If not, then it's just another way to look at how am I going to correct this. And from the exercise standpoint, that can be use EP. I mean, half of these exercises are Egoscue or PTX. I don't call them anything because they're exercises, but they're the same exercises Egoscue uses, the same exercise PTX uses. And I guarantee all of us in this room have found an exercise that just is a little different. We wish we could modify it because it worked for our client, and that's what I encourage. I just like to have a reason for doing something. And I think what frustrated me with Egoscue was, and it was while I was at Egoscue, and it was after the fact when I used to go see Chris Kussoff in Orange County because we lived right next door to each other. I lived by his office. So every once in a while, just because I missed working with clients like this, I would go in on a day off and he just let me work with a client. And I didn't charge him anything. I didn't ask. He knew I knew what I was doing, and I was testing my ACM stuff with him. And I looked at a menu that someone had written, somebody. It was like 19 exercises long. And I said, what was the purpose of this program? I said, was there a purpose? Like, I have a very definitive purpose to each exercise program. And a lot of research discusses at-home exercise compliance. And if it's more than 2 to 3 exercises, most people will not do it. And so I had to learn, luckily, I was thrown in the fire and said, we can only give people 3 exercises to do. Where they might go? I said, I don't know. Gosh, there's 100 things we could do with 800 exercises. I had to come up with a core set based on what I expect people to look like when they sit or when they climb a pole, and how can I improve movement patterns that are inherent to everybody. And so my opinion is if you're giving more than 5 exercises, you really don't have a focus on what you're correcting, or you're just trying a lot of different things. So pick whatever, you have to know the exercise programs you're offering somebody anyway. PTX has it, Egoscue has it. I'm not asking, I don't want to say don't use them because they have the exercises I use. I have a downward dog, I have a downward dog cobra, I have assisted hip lift, I have sitting knee pillow squeezes, I have all those. But I'm not saying I wanted control of it, and I wanted to be able to modify them, and I didn't want to rely on them to provide those exercises for me. But I think John did a really good job with his program, which is nice. Renee, is everything freezing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Renee, are you raising your?
Okay. I'm trying to put it down now. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So my question is, so I haven't read all the forum stuff. Trying to- How do you get these? What you guys are asking this, but how can I and try what you're recommending with spending $50 a month or 1,500 to take the class? Is there a way to try it?
Well, I was offering it half price for you guys. You were kind of breaking
Okay.
up through this whole process. What
I
you were asking.
know. Yeah.
So you were asking, is there a way to try the program or look at it?
Yeah. Or what are you suggesting here? What are
Well,
you
I
offering
really
here?
just wanted to introduce myself because a lot of people weren't sure who I was, like Lisa. And as we go along, if what I'm telling you is intriguing and you want to learn more, talk to Grace, talk to Carol because they dove in with me about this and they've got on the calls with Travis. And if you're interested, I'll go into more details about actual program. I'll take you through the coursework and all that. A lot of people didn't know who I was, and I think when a new person comes on, I had probably next to David and Travis had the most experience working with Pete. I worked with Pete hand side by side because I was the only one that saw new clients for 6 years straight. And I would take the picture, bring it into Pete, and we'd sit down and I expect him to like tell me stuff. He'd just tell me the exercise and say leave. And I had to decipher that for 6 years. And and so I think, to help you guys understand it, I can't really look at static posture anymore without wanting more to know more about somebody. And that's why the movement illustrates a lot more to me. Gait patterns help a little more too, but it's still some unknowns that I'm not getting from gait. But yeah, I offered this to the PT to this group at 50% off, $797. And the software, you can try that for free. There's a few people, Carol, I'm not pointing any fingers, had some trouble getting on the software and utilizing it. But you have to, the only way I can offer the software trial for free is if you put your credit card in and that looks like you're subscribing to it. And then once I get notification that you have gotten access to, so what happens is it's all automated. Once it's paid for, the system, this is my software developer built this all in, so I can't undo it. Once it's paid for, the timer starts, and at 30 days, you are rebuild that your first bill comes out and it's paid. I have to at any time I can discontinue use of that subscription, but if I do it before you've logged in and registered, then it will kick you out. So I had a refund Carol the last week, right, Carol? And I think Carolyn, sorry, and I know, sorry, honey. And I had to refund someone else that just did it. As soon as I get the notification that there's a bill that's coming up, I just refund it. But that's why it's completely free to you guys. You can play with the movement patterns. Not that you'll probably understand. Okay, Shirley, thanks.
Yes, Julie.
I'll post it. Thanks, Shirley. Sir Shirley was saying goodbye. So you can play with the software. It just takes you through the movement pattern assessment. You may not know why you're doing a movement pattern assessment or how to do it, but it just asks you the parameters. I get into the details as to why we're doing these movement pattern assessments, why these values. And there was the other thing that what I needed to do for myself, I needed to make this an objective measure, not subjective. Posture is very subjective unless you have the data analysis to look at positions, but that's also very expensive software. And so this is much more objective. You're not relying on guessing. You're looking at specific movements and angles that we know. 45. You know what 90 is. We're looking for these patterns, and we now we can tell someone on a phone call, hey, how is your posture doing? I don't know. I still have my posture. We didn't know what it looked like before, but now objectively I can ask them, are you at least 4 inches on your toe touch? Or you're at least 4 inches on your ankle mobility. They have an objective way to measure it, and you have an objective way to ask that and see it. That was another one of my wish lists when I was building this program. I needed to have something that was objective so that it could also be shared elsewhere and it can be replicated. So, yeah, if that is helpful, does that make sense? And I'll do
Yeah,
a
so
demo. I'll do a demo. You
So
can
the,
talk to Grace and Carolyn offline too about it. They've all gone through programs.
so the software would be something I could try. The smallest step to try would be try.
Yeah, it's free.
And then
Absolutely.
if I wanted to learn why these things happen, then I take the class.
Yeah, and the second part of the ACM, that software was written 5 years ago, and it really was just aimed at the movement pattern assessments. It doesn't tell us why we're. In fact, I don't even think the algorithm is part of the software, but it doesn't tell you where to start. It knows, the software knows where to start with. You'll find dysfunctions in every pattern. Well, where do you start now? But the software knows, based on the algorithm that took us the longest to write the code for, was do this first, then this, and then this. But there's no postural assessment in it. You can take pictures and put them in there and do comparison side by side. But it doesn't also go into the second part of the ACM, which was, now that you have all this information, where do you start? And that's what I sat down this past year or 2 years and really had to decipher, getting out of intuition. I just know, like Dave, like you guys asked, I've heard it, people say, Dave just knows when he looks at someone how to do something with someone. How did you know that? And some of that's intuitive. I don't want to use that intuitiveness. I want to understand it's because of X, Y, Z, and this is connected here, and this has to go here, this does that. And so the second part of the system that you're not going to get from the software is that systematic approach. I call it the 4 phases, and it goes through a very specific sequence of phases to address. And it's, as a therapist, it's our job to understand when to progress somebody or to regress them because the exercise is too hard. And that's what I look at a lot of, and the questions I've had with some of the directors in physical therapy that I'm working with right now is, I'm watching a lot of these athletes that they've been working with for years, and most of them can't do certain things. At what point does that become harmful, or do we just reinforce bad patterns? And so that's why we're having these discussions. It's really fun to collaborate with them. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to share the software. It's on, I think I've given access somewhere on there. I'll send, I can put the link here. You just have to, but you do have to pay for it. I mean, you don't pay for it. You just have to put your credit card in. It's held for a month. Once I see that, I get notifications about where you're at in the process of registering. And if you have problems, we can just go through it one time on a call between us, and I'll make sure you can get on and you can navigate. And once that's happened, then I'll just cancel your subscription. I don't want any of that money. I'm not looking to it. I don't think it's as robust as PTX is for what you guys want. It was set up, we were building it a little differently. And then I just said, you know what? I've got to rethink this because it was getting very expensive for me to keep building.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing is I wanted to at least help you guys understand who I was. And then really when it comes to a lot of my comments or suggestions on there, where it was coming from, what I look at, why am I looking at it differently than you? As like Lisa was saying, well, if you don't look at posture, what do you look at? And I look at things a little differently. Some of it's just through a lot of research and a lot of things I've learned. One of the biggest things, and I will tell you this, and this is kind of the foundation to it all, is back pain is the most prevalent thing you're probably going to come across. And I'm gonna put the link to that software in the chat, so just hang tight. But almost any research, and I don't know if anyone wants to geek out and read research like I do, but I read these things entirely, and almost every research article that I've read discusses one common thread to the, and I think this is it, no. One common thread was the paraspinal muscles, intervertebral muscles, and multifidi tend to be atrophied and have fatty deposits. And the research was trying to determine, is that cause and effect? Is it because of the back pain that this has happened, or because of the back pain have they got atrophied muscles? And so it doesn't matter, but we have to go after that way. And that's why a big part of the beginning processes of most of my rehab is proximal control for distal mobility. And that's what you'll learn later. I'm pretty sure this is the link, but let me check. Well, I think everyone here else, other than Lisa, knows who I am. Mark, I think you know who I am. You guys have any questions for me? ACM Exercise Therapy. Natalie. Yeah, this is I'll put the link of the software in there. Play with it, just see what happens and what you think of it. But you do have to go through a registration process. It'll send you an email to verify that it's you registering. It gives you your username will be the email that you use to register, and then the password will be a generated password that you'll change once you get in the system. Hang tight. I'm still looking for this, which link it was.
When you're done, Mike, I have another question.
I'm finished. I'm looking for this link that I can send you guys.
I'm just curious, are you advertising, and obviously you're letting all of us know about this. Are you recruiting other students who are taking this ACM program?
Outside of this group, yeah.
Yeah, and are you getting people and they're getting certified and having
I
success?
have been, yeah. I haven't been actively doing much of it yet. That was one of the things Travis was going to help me with, but I still have to go to work every day and do other stuff too. But my goal was to find some people to help me get this introduced into the colleges and to other groups like athletic training groups. And so I have a group of athletic trainers I send stuff to and try to promote. It's just a oh, here it is. I think this is it. So yeah, it's a process of me just continuously trying to find. I need help doing it. Why do you ask? I'm curious.
I have a vague memory of somebody actually being certified through your program. Well, it's not a vague memory, but and asking for permission to come onto the Posture Alliance forum, and they were not certified through PAS. So I was just curious how,
Oh yeah.
just how people like that.
I wouldn't know how they'd get a hold of you guys because I just got on Posture Alliance. I haven't promoted Posture Alliance to anybody. I don't know how they would have gotten to you. I don't know who it was. Was it Brian? Does that name sound familiar? What's his last name?
Well, Posture Alliance is all just, there's no
other type of therapist. It's just
right. Everyone's EGOSCI certified and then quote PTX license, but if they're affiliated with EGOSCI corporate or EGOSCI clinics, they're not on the Posture Alliance forum.
Yeah, no, nobody from EGOSCI that has. But do you know who Brian Justin is? Is he one of the group members? Sound familiar? He's from Vancouver, British Columbia. He got certified with me a couple years ago.
You cut out.
Oh.
You cut out, so we didn't hear his name.
Brian Justin.
I don't recognize that name.
Brian Justin, Carolyn.
I don't know.
He's a Czech Institute guy.
Oh yeah?
Level 2, yeah. So yeah, I don't promote to anyone to the Posture Alliance. How they find you, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this might be too personal, but is everything okay with Travis and between you and Travis?
Yeah, I don't know how some of you guys knew Travis well. I don't know what Travis left messages with you guys about. I didn't want to speak for Travis, but he was having some trouble with the business, and he just had an opportunity that fell in his lap. It really fell in his lap. Like Travis is a very good networking guy, and through his communications with people in the community, he found some people that really liked him, and they hired him as a sales. He's like the VP of sales for this retirement home, and it fell in his lap. He's making a lot of money, and I talked to him maybe a month ago. He loves it, and it took a lot of stress off his shoulders, and that's kind of the path he went down. So no offense to Travis, I think he had to do what he had to do, and I built this program. I really find a lot of value in it, and I just want to continue to promote it. And if I can help you guys even on the other side of it, helping with therapy for you guys, I'm here to help.
Well,
Unfortunately,
this has really helped us understand it, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, good. I mean, it really came. It really was more of an effort for my own sake to understand what I was seeing and to decipher it. I believed in what Pete was talking about. Gray Cook is a physical therapist who wrote a book called Movement, and when you read that book, if you ever do, it's almost like reading a more detailed explanation of what Pete's talked about all this time. And when I read it a couple of years ago, I said, "Oh my gosh, this sounds like Pete." But this guy's a physical therapist, so he went into detail about everything related to human movement and neurology, the neuromuscular connections, and I said, this makes sense, and that's why I went down that rabbit hole, because I said people are starting to understand movement, and it's interesting that physical therapy, it's still an advanced form of therapy, movement patterns, but we all do it, and that's why I'm excited to work with this group I'm working with here in Detroit around this.
Well, the problem with most physical therapists that I know of and have been through is they don't take the whole body into consideration. They don't look at movement patterns like that, like
Dude,
you're talking about.
I just had shoulder surgery 3 months ago, and they wanted me to go to physical therapy. I was like, fine. So I go to physical therapy, and it's a revolving door. I had techs that were working with me, no therapists, physical therapy techs. They first eval at my company where I work, and I work with the high schools at the triage stuff with the injuries. But I work in a center where we have physical therapists, strength and conditioning coaches, and these are like high level strength and conditioning coaches. We work with college athletes, professional athletes. One of the guys just came back from the Pittsburgh Steelers working with Russell Wilson for the weekend before the game, or it was right after the game. So these guys have been around the mill. They know a lot of people, and their physical therapy, our center looks like a CrossFit gym. The physical therapists have grandma doing planks right next to the athletes throwing medicine balls at the wall. It's crazy, but it's the way therapy should be. And our philosophy, the director's philosophy, is right in line with what I think, and it's just going to give me access to more brains. And this is where I really want to take ACM and build even more into it. Get you guys like proficient with understanding what I see in the movement patterns, so you can start seeing that, and then start going down some rabbit holes and chase this, and become affiliates of mine where we can start teaching around the country. I mean, that's my ultimate goal is to share this with you guys and help you guys and also build it to another level. And there's people that are going to be happy with doing Egoscue and the PTX stuff and staying in that lane. I'm just too ambitious for that. I want to know more and more and more. And I think, Carolyn, you can attest to that, right? Being check certified and looking for these other aspects of movement and corrective exercise.
What I liked about yours, I'm in agreement with you about the pictures. You can miss a lot. And all of a sudden you'll think you have it down pat, and then you'll see them in an off second move, and you're like, I didn't see that. What I liked about your testing is there's no guesswork with this. If there's a lower body rotation, you've got it on film. And I even did, and you'll see that on my case histories, I actually put the lines in there, everything like I saw you do on the program. So for me, it really helps.
You're talking about the objective measures.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a no-brainer. Then you feel like you're walking in. So I feel like I've taken that lens and I've now widened my lens and I have more information. Another thing I liked about it is, especially if someone is in good physical shape, they're going to respond very, very rapidly. And that whole thing about the ankle, we never talked about this, but I had someone give me a whole lot of data, starting with TMJ pain all the way down to both knees were hurting, even though one had a torn meniscus. I had 5 exercises, and this person improved immediately. And I was thrown by how fast that happened. Now, not everybody is like that, but that's an example of, and that's all it took with me, because if you can prove something to me, then I'm going to go for it. But I feel that it gives us more information. It also adds a touch of professionalism that we don't really have with the, like you said, intuitive type of, here's a picture with the lines and all of that. Now you've got something that's a little bit more scientific. And I like that too, because I think the direction things are going in, and we'll talk about that later, but
That's okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's great, Mike, and I've been
Well, I
real
appreciate
happy.
it. And I appreciate it only because I wanted you to share the fact that you are Check 4 certified. Paul
No,
Check
it's 5. They
5,
promoted me.
which means like you see value in Paul Check was a person I heard of before Egoscue. I was
Yeah.
told to go work for Paul Check instead of Egoscue. I didn't know Egoscue. Paul Check is like a big movement person, and I know Carolyn was deep into that and values other aspects. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We whatever discipline we work in, this is why it's really fun to work with athletic trainers, physical therapists, and strength conditioning coach all in one, because we all have certain focus, and then it broadens our focus. So I'm just going to share this with this small group. I'm working on something. As you get involved with ACM and you get onto the platform, from this point on, any additional stuff I'm going to be adding is going to be just more stuff in there. But I'm working on something now that I just discovered recently that I've always had questions about. I'm not sure how it fits in yet as far as an assessment, but we use a specific type of assessment, and but it'll be interesting to see how this blends once I kind of understand it more and dive into the research behind it. It's more about some structural stability, not part stuff, and it's going to be really interesting. It's more about stability, and you'll learn a lot about that, especially Grace, when you finish my course. Grace, when you finish the course, about the whole idea of proximal control for distal mobility. And we have ways to assess stability in a lot of different aspects. And I think we've come up with a pretty interesting way to assess really a quick screen on stability, kinetic chain stability. And I'm just testing some things with it, and maybe just introduce it and use all of us to kind of continue to perfect it. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that collaboration with a team of people that really see this and want to open that lens up a little bit more. And if it goes too wide, Carolyn, it just gets crazy because there's too much to know. There just really is. I think we're on the right path. Egoscue was a good focal point for me, and then I widened my lens, and I'm absorbing as much as I can right now with human movement, and I've been studying it for the last since 2008. I'm sorry, 2005, 2006-ish is when 2017, 16. I think right around 2015 was when I heard about FMS and functional movement screen great quick movement patterns. So it's been close to 10 years that my lens opened, and I'm still absorbing movement patterns, because it's crazy how big that is. But it really does open your eyes to a whole wider lens. Well, awesome. That's an hour. Does that help, Renee, explain everything? Introduce myself. Lisa, do you know who I am now? She's probably.
I do. No, I do. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's
Lisa.
very, very interesting. I still have a million doubts when I'm with some clients. Sometimes it's so easy in 2 seconds, I know. Some other times it's like, what am I missing?
I was the same way. Look, I watch you on TV on your videos, and you're very confident with what you talk about. And I was there too, Lisa. And I always had this. I never really understood. I never felt like I could put a finger on why it wasn't half the people I was working with I couldn't figure out. And what was I missing? And I had to open that door up because I had no one to talk to about it. I didn't have someone to rely on. I know that Matt Whitehead's really good with you guys. David's really good about helping you kind of see some things and do some different programs. You're not quite sure why. Maybe they explain it. I haven't really talked to them too much. But to me, this has given me a very direct, systematic approach. And I don't come across many people that something doesn't make sense with, or doesn't give me a central focus to work on. especially once you get into the proximal control for distal mobility process, when you start working on the phases of corrective exercise and how to choose those exercises. That's the biggest thing. When I go through
I will absolutely contact you. I'm very interested in learning more.
Yeah,
I'm like you.
I'd love to talk to you.
And it's very interesting. I love the idea that I can actually make a routine in 5 exercises. I haven't.
Should be making
The
a
most I can do is 8, and I'm dying, and I don't know what to take off, and this one connects to this, and if I take it off, I can't imagine making a routine of 3 exercises that are super effective. Wow, it's what we all want.
Programs I showed you, those pain-free programs that I developed, most of them have 5 exercises. There's a couple that have 6, but there's no more than 6 because I know that people will not be compliant with them, and they are objectable measures of things to an extent.
So I just have to comment. I actually, at David's DC workshop, he made us do 3 exercises, and it was very challenging. But I've gotten my menu shorter. But I have some long-term clients, and they want 20 exercises.
Then
they
give
would
it
do
to
this,
them, right?
huh?
Yeah, then give it to them if they're compliant with it.
Yeah, and when I do classes, if I keep them shorter, they're like, no, we want more.
Well, you got great clients. Grace.
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm with Lisa, where sometimes I'm like throwing noodles at the wall and hoping they stick,
Right. Yeah, I had one of our athletic trainers at my group I work with. I was asking him, he had all these routines written on the board, and I was like, well, where do you come up? What are they for? They were no more than 5 exercises. They were like really high level exercises. We do some like athletic exercises. He's working with clients that are kind of members of the gym, and I said, do you have a central focus? Like, are you doing something specific for these based on, and he'll give me the answer that you would tell a client, yeah, we're focused. But then he told me kind of off the beaten path, he's like, most of these people don't know. They just want a challenging exercise. We know we're giving them something good, but I don't think he takes it too serious. The rest of us do, and I really want to understand why I'm giving someone exercises to do. And not feel like it's just, most aren't going to care, just give me something. But I want to know that when I'm working with someone, I'm focusing on one specific movement or task, and if I can achieve that through 2, let's move to the next one. So a lot of my programs that are centered around 20,000 employees, I have to say, here's the majority of them are going to look like this sitting, or if they're standing on the assembly floor, here's what I'm going to expect out of most people are going to have probably some ankle mobility issues. Let's focus on that. So I give 1 exercise for ankle mobility. I give 1 hip hinge pattern. I give 1 thoracic mobility rotation pattern. And then I do something for core stability. And so I can develop a 5 exercise program that focuses on all my movement patterns and takes care of it all. Again, is it effective? We could be more effective if we're being precise, but it's a way to scale it too. I was tasked with working with 20,000 employees. So but I wanted it to be something that was that was effective and it had a purpose, if that makes sense. I could explain why each exercise is what it was. Okay, thanks, Grace. Yeah, I'll keep this on if anyone wants to talk more, and I'll just keep the recording and I'll post it later.
I was just wondering if anyone else had questions before we sign off so that I could hear their questions and your answers. And then I can sign, but I got to sign off shortly.
I'll say that I do like the idea of something a little more sure, because I think it's really hard for me to sell, because every now and then I hit this client that does 8 sessions and they're still not better. And it feels really like, oh my gosh, you spent hundreds of dollars and you're still not better.
Even if you see like their feet aren't turning out as much, they're better in your eyes, but they don't feel better. They don't move better. If you can get someone to move better, that they'll feel better. I can guarantee it, because they can feel. That's an objective measure. And then you can start relating that to, did it freeze on me? Was it froze or did it?
Well, and there's no way that I would have survived as long as I have without Matt.
Yeah. It's kind of breaking up. So maybe
but that's really.
I'm sorry, Renee, what's that?
Oh, just I have Matt too, but I want to be able to do it myself. So yeah, if there's a new stage of learning, a little more secure, a little more scientific, I love that
Yeah,
idea.
what I'll tell you
Sounds
is
good.
this. If you're willing to go down a rabbit hole, I'm here to lead you because I don't have all the answers to movement, human movement. It's vast, but I've found it. I've built this around a foundation, and that foundation now we can expand on it, and that's what I'm learning at this physical therapy group. They've expanded it to. I think they've gone a little too far, in my opinion. I think we have to pull back the reins on some of the stuff we're doing, but they do a lot of group classes with big teams, and they have to have a way to do this. But yeah, that's why I think that's why I wanted to introduce myself to you guys, to at least let you know that I know what you guys know about posture, and I know the approach you took. I know the frustration you had. I had the same, and I went out and for my own sake built something that made sense to me. And I think the people that I've introduced this to before even Egoscue people got it. It made sense to them. Hearing it from the few that have gotten certified with me, they're seeing the light now. They're seeing a wider lens that makes more sense to them and gives you kind of an approach that you feel confident in approaching just about anybody with a direction. And I'm here as your coach through the process too.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
Grace, appreciate it. Great to see you. Renee, you, Natalie, thanks. Lisa, thanks. Carolyn. Anything you guys have, just reach out to me, okay? We can set up some personal Zoom calls.
Sounds good. I'm going to take off. Thank you.